Neil, I know that it's showing. Are you wanting the notes to show? For
Is
the
it
next
showing the
part?
notes?
It's not showing in.
Of course, it wasn't showing the right screen. What about now?
Yes, sir.
Thank you for letting me know.
You're welcome.
Happens when you have multiple screens. Good afternoon, everyone. How are y'all doing? You're all on mute. Just to let y'all
Good.
know, we are gonna be asking for people to participate, or I'm gonna be calling on people, FYI.
All right. Sounds good to me.
Thank you, John. That's what I'm talking about.
Hello, John. Where are you
Hi.
at? Hello.
Good to
Where are
see
you
you.
located?
Oh, I'm in New York, Westchester County, north of New York City, in Irvington. And it's hot here. What a hot day. Whew. Not bad in the house, though.
It's hot in New York. Okay.
Nice.
Where's everyone else from?
So myself, I'm here in Atlanta.
Oh, okay.
And I'm here in Atlanta as well.
Ah, all righty.
Yes.
Yeah. Is
And
it hot there?
Sarah's in Mexico right now. Just have to put it out there.
All right, let's see. I gotta fix my screen here. Oops, sorry. I should go on.
Okay. Well, guess we'll go ahead and get started. More people will join as we go. Definitely want to say thank you for joining us this afternoon. You'll have two facilitators this evening. Myself and Chelsea will be introducing ourselves fairly soon. But thank you for joining the Business Development Strategies for Learning and Development Professionals. So we hope this is going to be an engaging session. So we're expecting feedback and for people to come off their microphones, show your face, participate in the chat. So there's going to be some of that engagement. So don't be alarmed if we do call you out or whatnot. So you should be used to this by now. Hi, Jonathan.
Be careful what you wish for.
I know, I forgot about you. So today, the things that we're going to cover, we're going to go through business development, sales, and marketing, and what that looks like. How does that relate to the talent development capability model? And then we're going to experience some areas of ideation and innovation and practice some business development strategies amongst themselves. So we should be able to accomplish this as one group, being that we have the amount of people right here instead of breaking out into smaller groups to do that. But we'll allow ourselves to figure that out as we go through. But without further ado, I would like to introduce Miss Chelsea Spencer Smith. Chelsea.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Screaming from Atlanta, Georgia. Neil and I have partnered on some initiatives together, and he's been such a joy. A little bit about me: I've got over 20 years of sales and business development experience on the corporate side, and I have my own company. It's called St. James Xavier Group, and our niche is business development, and we do young professional coaching, executive coaching, and leadership development as well. And I appreciate you having me today. Thank you.
Awesome. My name is Cornelius Dowdell, also known as Neil. I'm the president of ATD Greater Atlanta, but also the lead consultant at the Neil Strategy here in the Greater Atlanta area. About 20 years of management leadership experience, focusing on talent development and helping organizations improve or advance or enhance themselves, whatever adjective you would like to use with that. But we want to thank you today for joining us for these business development strategies, because it's really near and dear to our heart, because L&D professionals are business development professionals at heart, because they have internal and external stakeholders. And so today we hope to bring out that and some of those value propositions so that you have a full understanding of that and how to leverage that going forward. So as you read this quote on the screen, and definitely look up that book, The Value Mix. It's a great resource to have when it's talking about value proposition and understanding your core value. Would someone be able to elaborate beyond this quote? What does this mean to you?
And we'd love for you to put it in the chat if you want, or you can unmute yourself.
Hi, when I read this, a good example of what he's talking about is I know that I need to eat certain types of food and exercise a certain amount to have a fit body, but that doesn't mean that I do have a fit body. I haven't put it into action necessarily.
See, Leanne, you're speaking to my heart at this current moment, because I have a personal trainer and he's telling me that I need to eat these vegetables and I need to do this portion control, but I'm not doing it. And so I'm not doing it. And so I'm like, well, I need more food than that 900 calories that you're trying to get me today. And so, however, but if I decide to do it, the results would be that I would actually have those flat abs that I'm looking for, those six packs, that you see on the surfers. I want one of those, but I don't want to put that into action apparently. So thank you for that insight. Chelsea, did you want to elaborate?
I was just going to thank her for teeing that up so eloquently for us. I think action is very important in order to see results, and putting the hard work into play with a strategic plan, whatever that is, right? So planning is essential as well. So business development. Okay, it's a sexy term, right? It's complex, and a lot of people have different definitions. I would say for me, how I define it, it's a long-term value for a company around sales strategy, partnership. In addition to that, it would also be a relationship management. What you're going to find is that we're going to talk a lot about self-awareness. And self-awareness, how I leverage that with my business and my clients is that the more self-aware you are, the better you can see others and support them and add value. So you're going to hear Neil and I talk about self-awareness and really seeing yourselves in a different way. With sales in particular, we all know what that is, right? It's the activity that involves selling a product or a service to a consumer or a company or business. So just teeing those two things up to you, we're going to bring that together around marketing.
So you have the marketing piece, you have the sales part. She's spoken on business development, but marketing is really how do you present that that service or that product? It's that branding. It's that whole journey itself that'll lead your contact, your client, what they're going to go through, how they're going to experience that product or that service based off how you communicate. And how we align that with business development is business development, as Chelsea has eloquently put, is building relationships. So the dialogue that you're going to have with them. And today we're going to talk a lot more about that, talk a lot about self-awareness, but also that positioning that you will do in order to bring that service or that product to market. And how does this relate to talent development? A lot of people ask, is that in our ATD capability model, we have these concepts and these skills here around business partnership and consulting. A lot of us, whether we're instructional designers or learning technology professionals or facilitators and trainers, and the list goes on and on, organizational development professionals, we do business development. We leverage and build relationships. We sit down with our stakeholders, whether internal or external, and we analyze and we go in to figure out what is the need and how can we excel and meet that need and excel at it as well. So TD's put together this capability model, and this one falls right up under, if I lost it, impacting organizational capability. And these are some skill sets that you can get if you have access to the TD model. They have a lot of different skills that you can go through to help upskill and improve on these areas. But as you look through this list, will someone be able to call out one or two statements that actually resonates with them? Let's hear from Marissa. I'm only picking on her because I know her name.
Okay, let me unmute. Hello. Something that did stick out when I was reading the list, it said skill in partnering with other organizational units to provide guidance and departmental or organizational talent requirements. So I think about how, as a talent development professional, you have to really be able to work cross-functionally and really be able to dig in and understand what that organization needs as a whole or what that department needs. So you can just have that guidance. So you can see where people are in that particular talent realm, whether they're new professionals or whether they're more experienced.
Mhm.
So really being able to work cross-functionally.
Correct. Being able to work cross-functionally. Chelsea would tie that back to self-awareness as well, because how are you going to help them if you don't know who you are
Right.
and don't know what your capabilities are? Is there another person that would like to pull out another statement that resonates with them?
Yeah, something that resonates for me, Neil, is that skill and, oh, I'm sorry, did I interrupt someone?
Nope.
Okay. The skill in synthesizing information to formulate recommendations. I think for a lot of our clients, sometimes when it comes to talent management space, they're inundated. They're reading the white pages, they're going to websites, they're reading Harvard Business Review. There's a lot that's out there, so they don't know where to go. So I think a lot of times they rely on us to help synthesize and break down that information into something that's actionable and going to provide value for them.
That's excellent. And so Jonathan, on that, how do you build that relationship with that stakeholder? Because they've reached out to you. So they've kind of identified you as a subject matter expert, but all of this data that's out there, all of that knowledge that's out there, how do you hone in and make sure and make sure that they're secure that they've identified the right person?
Well, I think it starts with the end in mind. So what is it that they're trying to accomplish? Is there a particular problem that they're trying to solve? Is there an expanse in a service or a product? Since I've had the great fortune of working with you, Neil, we've been in the position many times before where, a client is maybe worried about attrition. So they're losing people. So what I feel need to do is render down to them what are some key actionable things that they can do, like creating a talent pipeline to a local school, or increasing the capabilities of their management to actually be better people. So people want to work there. So rendering it down to something very simple and actionable, I think, is what builds the credibility.
Yes.
What I think erodes this is just my humble opinion, what erodes the credibility is when we just overwhelm them with options.
Yes. So providing multiple options, but not honing in on a handful that they can select from. And I loved how you put it, giving them actionable steps, and providing that direction, which is why they're reaching out to consultants. So a lot of us on this call are either consultants or looking to become consultants or trying to figure out that space. However, we brought this to you because there is a business development angle to being a consultant. Sometimes you have a product or you have a service that you would like to provide, or people are already reaching out to you for. And so we want to help you position yourself so that they understand when they reach out to you, or you reach out to them, or you introduce yourself, that they know the value add that they're getting from you in that experience. And that actually helps narrow down that conversation so that you are that subject matter expert and they understand that. This leads into, Jonathan, as you were mentioning, as far as, they have an array of things that they're looking to get into or trying to solve, a lot of problems sometimes. So what we like to do is to analyze those problems and group them. So that's kind of where the creativity, the innovation, and the ideation aspects of things come from. Chelsea?
Yeah, so when we think of innovation and ideation, we think of ways to create change, if you will, and to make an impact. So what are some ways that you guys are creating innovation within your organization, from a consultative perspective, right, for your organization or your teams. If anyone could put a response in the chat, or you can unmute yourself and tell me different ways that you're doing so.
Is it Brian?
I just, I'm
Oh,
sorry.
someone's unmuted themselves?
Yes, I did. This is
Okay,
Deborah
Deborah.
from Delaware.
Hi,
Can you
Deborah
hear
from
me?
Delaware. Yes, we can.
Yeah. Okay. So, one way that I've done this in the past is to really get to know the business at hand. And, in going to their staff meetings and engaging the business, to the level that I could, a lot of times I'm able to see gaps or see some things that people don't see. And because they're really steeped into what they're doing each and every day. So I find that my creativity comes from just being able to be a little bit more objective, or to see something outside of the parameters of what they may be engaging on a daily basis.
So that's taking that high level approach of looking at the organizational culture from an outsider.
Right.
Mhm. So Jonathan has written in the chat, unleashing the human spirit by asking, what can we do to make things better?
Right. So I like that. So we're coming from a base of curiosity, right? So some of the best leaders, they lead with curiosity. And one thing that I do with my coaching clients is that I teach them the skill to lead with curiosity. And there's a process to do that. First, again, we're going to go back to the self-awareness piece of knowing who you are, to know the right questions to ask. When I think about the question that I asked you guys, what are ways of creating innovation? I had a client that was a hospital that was actually losing revenue, and they were having trouble looking at their existing clients. So what they did was, we did a discovery session, and I asked them a series of questions coming from a base of curiosity. Come to find out, they were losing their clients due to a lack of communication within their teams, right? Again, not seeing each other. But in addition to that, what we found is that they had over 500 lapsing patients that hadn't been into the hospital in over 2 years. So what we did, we put some KPIs in place and some goal setting, and they actually started to grow their business. When we put those initiatives in place, each quarter they were seeing growth, and they were retaining those lapsing patients. And that's what we want to see, right? We want to be able to lean in with that curiosity and say, hey, well, why are they not coming back? You know, what is it that we're missing? How do we need to press the reset button? So I want to give that story to kind of get you to thinking of a client that maybe they didn't call you back. You know, what did we do? What did we do with that? What did I go wrong? And oftentimes, if I don't get that call back, or if I don't get that follow-up email, I'm looking in the mirror, right? And I'm saying to myself, why did I not get the call back, right? And asking for feedback is essential as well, right? We need to know how people are experiencing us, and maybe we're missing something, right?
Was there a time that someone's asked for feedback and you've gotten the feedback, but it wasn't what you thought it was going to be?
Yes. Yes. And I can speak to that. Thank you, Neil. Nonverbal behavior, right? So nonverbal behavior is 90%, 80 to 90% of communication. So our body language says something when we don't even know it, right? And so that's the other thing that I help my clients wake up to, is to see yourself a little bit better on how your teams are experiencing you. A lot of times leaders think they're crushing it, and really their teams don't trust them because of how they're experiencing the leader's nonverbal behavior. So thank you, Neil.
Anyone else got any feedback in that on this area? What are some other ways that you've used to, or other questions or curiosity that you've leveraged in your current workplace or on projects?
This is Ann Pruitt.
Hi, Ann.
Hi. Yeah, I think one thing that I've used with teams that has been interesting is having them write down words to describe their past. You know, what issues have we had in the past? And then post those Post-it notes, and then get them to write on a second set of post-it notes, how does this, how do you want to see this team in the future?
Mm.
And I kind of take away the now. So it kind of removes them a little bit from, hey, none of this is my fault, although we get to that later. But I mean, we get to, really start to see, have them take that sort of objective look. How is the rest of the team, not me, of course, but the rest of the team. And so that's been kind of interesting, get really interesting results.
That's awesome. And so I've facilitated courses where I've realized there's a lot of tension. So have you ever just sensed the tension in the room, or you're talking to your stakeholder and you realize there's something else going on? And you're like, you know what, let's take 5 or 10 minutes so y'all just unravel. I love that exercise. That is a great way of doing it.
Yeah.
Jonathan has been putting in the chat, or is this Jonathan, I believe?
Yeah, Jonathan did.
Yeah, creating feedback loops in general. Of safe spaces, methods to talk about what could be improved, focusing on focus groups and anonymous surveys. So all of those are great ways of extracting data. So as a consultant, the goal is to get as much data as possible before you provide a solution. And sometimes that's very hard to do, because sometimes you kind of need to seal the deal before you can, sign the contract and then discover that, oh my gosh, wait, I bit off way more than I can chew, or you know what, this is going to result in another scope because you didn't tell me about the other things that were going on. And so anyone else ever encountered that problem, or is it just me?
Oh my God, yes.
So, and that's where that creativity and that ideation aspect comes in. And that's what we do well. When we get into that piece and understanding our stakeholders and that relationship, then we can start categorizing back to those small steps that Jonathan was talking about, bite-sized ways of just putting in those challenges and then mapping out a way that we could approach them. So immediately people want to actually act now. Many times people come and want to give you, I want this and I need it because this is happening. And come to find out, as Chelsea's pointed out, no, there was an underlying problem that just wasn't being seen, or as Anne has pointed out, that, hey, we didn't even know about. So we kind of needed to address that first before we could actually address the overarching problem.
So your value add positioning pitch and what's important around this. I think, Neil, you're going to talk about the sales piece first.
Right. So we're talking about self-awareness, understanding that business development has a piece of sales in it. It has a piece of marketing in it. It's a combination of sales, marketing, and relationship building. Understanding who you are first is self-awareness, but then also understanding where you want to go, as I mentioned earlier, having the end in mind as we're moving forward. So I've leveraged a variety of different assessment tools, such as Everything DISC and DISC Sales, or utilizing emotional intelligence tools, Talent Smart, to understand who I am. And being my career in corporate learning for the last 20 years, understanding who I am and knowing that I'm growing and changing, just think about the other people and your stakeholders as well. They need to understand who they are. And there are a lot of assessments out there, and a lot of people like to leverage them. And most of them basically say almost the same thing. So choose the one that works with you the best. But the goal is to make sure that your client and your customer understands who they are and why and how they're making decisions. And then leveraging that data so that you can provide a great solution for them at the end. Chelsea.
Yes. So asking everyone a question: how will your clients view you as the #1 value added contributor? What are some things that you're doing? We're going to look at a model that we created around our value pitch positioning. And on this model, if you see it, are you going to go to the next slide? Yeah. So the first part is your audience. So who's your audience? knowing who that audience is. What makes you unique as an individual? What is special about you? What do you leverage about yourself that is your strength? Something I love to leverage, and you've heard me say it already probably 5 times, if not more, is the self-awareness piece. I like to leverage that with my clients at every turn. Curate your own positioning pitch, right? Practice, practice, practice. Stand in the mirror, create your pitch, say it, say it, say it. What does that look like? And then you're going to test it, right? And then ask for feedback. A couple of things that we want to consider around creating our pitch is knowing your strengths and also tracking what you're saying and what's being said to you, right? So we're going to do those 2 things, and we're going to actually see if anyone has anything they want to say around pitching, if you've had a pitching story. And if not, I can tell a story. So I will. Now, have you ever been asked, what do you do for a living? Anybody want to raise their hand and tell me? You're at a cocktail party and someone says, what do you do for a living, Chelsea? What I do is, the best pitch is saying, hey, you know the leader that's kind of lost his luster and his team can see it? Or, hey, do you know the person that's tired of the, I'm sorry?
So I think either I paused or you paused, but.
Oh, I paused, okay. Or I saw the leader that, that's losing their luster, and, or you have the employee that's just tired of the repetitive changes in the market, and then they're unsure of their job, but they want to go and start their own company. Well, I help resolve that. I help them find solutions to get what they're trying to get to, right? I help create solutions and coaching those individuals. So that would be my pitch. So you don't want to just say, I'm in consulting, right? You're going to lose your audience, versus leaning in with curiosity and saying, you know what? Creating the resolution, giving them a solution about what you do, right? That's going to affect your bottom line.
So who's here has an example of how they've introduced themselves? Say that you're at an ATD networking event. What is your traditional way of introducing yourself? I see that.
I'll go
ahead,
again.
Leanne.
I'll go again. So I like to, when I'm at an ATD event, I tell people that I act as an agent for learning and development consultants to help them find great work.
It's a great position. She's an agent. And so anyone else? I know Chuck is on the call.
Hi, Neil. I'll say, this is Marissa again.
Hi, Marissa.
Yeah, usually I tell people that I am a program marketing manager. However, I do have a love and affinity for growth and development. So I have a unique spin with, being able to market some of the courses that I create. So helping organizations not only put their course out there, but just help them kind of grow the organization as well. So trying to tie those 2 worlds together.
Yes. So a great example of that would be also instructional designers who leverage and build out, instead of telling someone that you're an instructional designer, right? That can mean a variety of different things to a variety of different people. However, if you explain or showcase that skill about, hey, that employee development program that you went through when you were hired at X, Y, and Z company, I'm the person that developed that. I'm the one that helps impact that organizational experience, that culture and experience. And it's really about rewording and reframing. And that's what business development strategists do. They help you understand more about your role, your strategies, your services and products, so that you can help reposition yourself in the market and provide that value for your customer. And so definitely helping you stand out and be more unique than your other competitors at that. So Marissa, I think you're talking, but you're on mute. I'm not sure. It's showing green.
Hello.
Hi,
I start with performance improvement nowadays.
You start with performance improvement?
Yeah, I mean, initially, like, because in business area,
Mhm.
that way you're talking about the impact of the learning. So, I don't know, that's what I throw in there. I didn't mean to cut Marissa off, though. I'm sorry.
Oh, no problem.
No worries. That was what I was trying to say, just trying to tie those two worlds together with my background in order to leverage, an instructional design course, as well as being able to use, my marketing skills. So I'm trying to tie those two worlds together from a business development perspective, and just to make sure that I'm aiming at what that particular organization might need, or person might need at the time, based on what I can provide them from a marketing perspective, as well as from a course perspective.
See, I was going to ask, how many people find themselves in this area of doing business development for their own brand, but they struggle with it? You can show your hand, so you can, or put it in the chat. Yes, thank you, Anne.
And I think a good question to ask yourself is, why do you think you're struggling with it?
Mhm.
Right? So you come from the basic curiosity within
There you
yourself,
go.
saying, why am I struggling with this, and what's going on for me? And tying it back to yourself, because you're the common denominator. We are the common denominator for certain things that evolve.
So Chelsea, what are some reasons why people struggle with this area?
I think it's a couple of reasons. I would say, from just a personal authenticity, being authentic, is fear, right? Fear drives a lot of our decisions to not do something. Fear of failure, fear of not knowing the answer, fear of not being received well, fear of rejection.
Mhm.
So I would say fear would be at the base of it, but that's the subtle nuances that hold us back, right, from moving the needle in our careers, or getting that new client, or getting that new contract. So I believe that if you can wake yourself up to the subtle nuances of those behaviors, then it's a game changer.
It is. Anne has put in there, the industry is constantly changing. So am I using the right words, or having the right terminology when I'm speaking to this individual client in this particular sector? And I think I do this in my head as well. Like, because you're thinking about leadership and development. If you're in that aspect right now, that can apply. The terminology is vast. And it's like, okay, am I really hitting the nail on the head with this person here? So I feel you on that part.
And, in addition to that too, with Anne saying there's so many different changes going on, we're in the fourth industrial revolution. The first one was steam, right? So technology is evolving and moving, and being in the fourth generation, it's around connectivity. So the only thing that can't be digitized is what? Human only traits. So that's why the folks that want to really become more self-aware about what they're doing and how they're being received, those are the people that will be fine. But the ones that don't want to look in the mirror and change the subtle things about themselves, they're going to have a harder time. So we are in the fourth industrial revolution, and we've got 6 generations in the workforce, with Alpha generation being the last one. Those young babies. Yeah.
I know, they're so different.
Hey, if I may, could I ask a question?
Yes.
Sure.
So, Chelsea, Neil, have you seen a shift at all in the check signers, in that the people who are approving our services and our products in the talent management space, are you seeing a shift from, the baby boomers being very skeptical, wanting to track a very specific ROI for every penny, versus more of the, I'll just say younger millennial leaders who see the value of talent development? They see it, they understand that it needs to occur. They're just much more interested maybe in the tactics, and do those tactics align with the culture?
So you're right in a sense that the millennial, or the younger generation, they see the tactics. They're trying to be more budget conscious. So what you're working with is that technology and our approach to L&D, training and development, coaching and mentoring has changed. And it's actually a lot more advanced than of the organizations that are actually trying to practice these things. So you run into P&L issues, or whether or not they actually have the budget to have the impact. And we all know that if you do something, if you, excuse my language, half-ass do something, that you're not going to get the results. I couldn't find a better way of putting it, Chelsea. You're not going to get the results that you're looking for. So what's happening in the workplace is that you're having these leaders, but they're going up against, okay, I want to have this impact. I know our culture is changing and moving. However, we don't have the investment or the funding to actually have the impact that we're looking for. So they're kind of picking and choosing what they want to invest in. But we're seeing that there is interest, but it is taking a longer time for them than making a decision. And I'm not sure if any other consultants on the call are seeing that the decision-making process is taking a lot longer than it used to take. And they
Neil,
could just
I
be an
see
Atlanta
that.
area.
Okay, Neil, I see that. This is Deborah.
Hi.
But I think what's happening, this younger generation is coming to the workplace with many more expectations. And one of the things that they're looking at is chances for development. And when they see there are no chances for development, they're saying, deuces, I'm going someplace else. And it's not just money, it's the chances for development that are very important to this younger generation.
Mhm. So
Yep.
our question in helping organizations solve is, how do they adapt? And so what I've been doing is helping the organizations understand their value proposition. And if they don't have enough value proposition to be competitive, then they have a task ahead of them of getting to that point so they can be competitive to retain their talent. So sometimes you're getting the talent. The problem is that, hey, you're losing them as fast as you're getting them. And so what's going to keep them there? And that's been a struggle for a lot of organizations. Small businesses are really hurting at this current moment, medium-sized businesses, because the large businesses are growing so exponentially that they can actually provide some of that value. So, or other organizations have to look at their culture internally to determine exactly what value that they can provide that counters that. So one time, I would love to work for Google. Google would be great, but Google is a mammoth. I'm going to get lost in Google unless I'm at the top. If they hire a senior talent development head global role or something like that, I might look at it. But that would be great. But for someone that values that connectivity that we're talking about, that relationship building or whatnot, might find more value with being in a small and medium-sized business, because they're going to have a true impact and have more of a relationship with their customers. And ultimately, this is all about the customer, which gets lost a lot of the times in talent development. We're doing a lot of internal work, but we want to keep the customer in mind if we're thinking about the end goal. What value we're going to provide and how it's going to impact the customer, which ultimately impacts the bottom line for that organization.
Mhm. Great conversation.
Love it.
So this video here, we're going to show it maybe once or twice so you could get a good glimpse. Did I do that?
Well, check this out. The woman throwing this pitch, the first pitch at the White Sox-Royals game yesterday in Chicago. Well, standing just feet away, this poor photographer, you saw him, he paid the price. He's okay, though. Afterwards, she even, gave him a big hug, and the picture was taken as well, so she could remember this moment. Look at that. Oh.
Yeah, so we show that video because, sometimes we can make the wrong pitch, right? We can position ourselves not in an effective way when we're engaging our clients, our stakeholders, our teams. Someone said, bless her heart. So we show that video just to make it, bring an awareness that it is about practicing. It's not about perfection necessarily, but it's definitely practice, practice, practice. And a lot of times you just have to look in the mirror, think of your points that you're going to make, and always tie it to the bottom line of how you're going to add value. So we show that slide. Does anybody want to give us a story about the worst pitch?
Knowing that
Oh
you,
my God, there's so many.
so many, we've made the wrong pitch somewhere. No, all of us have. Go ahead, Jonathan.
Yeah, so I pitched a manufacturing company once on, so the person that reached out to me was a friend of mine who said, hey, they need help with hard skills training. So they've got a new machine, and it would be great if you could come in and help them with a learning strategy on this new machine. And so I dipped in my toolkit, and I had a learning map for, you know, these types of machines, and I had it well thought out. I had the cost model already, and I went into the meeting, and there, seated around the table, was the entire C-suite. And I was just like, oh, well, thank you. I really appreciate your time. And they said, and they were like, okay, wow us. And I said, okay. So I showed them my little PowerPoint, and they looked around in confusion, and the CFO said, who the hell is this guy? And I was like, oh my God. And I looked at the guy who brought me in, and I said, I think maybe I presented the wrong thing. And the CFO said, like, we thought that you were going to come in and tell us how to build a learning organization, not just one training map, not just one training on one machine. And I was just like, oh, at the time, I didn't know how to pivot on that. And I fell completely flat-footed. I mean,
was about to ask you,
now,
did you pivot?
yeah, well, now, like, knowing what I know now, I would have switched that real quick to be like, hey, fantastic, you're talking to the right guy. So let me tell you what we can do. And I could have very quickly just, you know, on a whiteboard, showed them how they could have built a learning organization. But I fell flat. I know my face was red. I was nervous. I was catatonic. I couldn't talk after that.
So let's talk about that ability to pivot, though. That is rooted in self-awareness. Knowing yourself, but also knowing your product and services well enough to be able to pivot at any given notice. And so if we've all found ourselves in, oh, I delivered the wrong pitch, and you're sitting here trying to figure out what to do next, because it's written on their face. It's like, you can, if you're aware of, if you can people read, you can really look at someone's face and see it's written there. You kind of need to navigate. You know, I've also delivered a pitch and got halfway through the pitch and realized that, you know what, this is not hitting right. How do I pitch? But it's really rooted in, it's rooted in that self-awareness. What's in my toolbox, my leadership toolbox, my consultant toolbox, that's going to help me navigate this into the right direction. And it's really hard, and it happens more often than not. In my experience, you know, sometimes what the client asks for is so vague that you kind of technically need to bring the entire toolbox, because you need to determine what you need to present. And when I say a toolbox, sometimes I do physically mean a toolbox. You know, you got to pull out some resources every now and then and be like, well, you know what, I don't know if you want this delegation class, you're trying to manage up, or you're trying to do this, but you know, I'm gonna bring the whole catalog just in case.
Yeah.
Anyone else have a story?
I was just gonna say, the time I totally messed up was I just walked in and started talking about me, which is not self-aware. And so I actually saw the nonverbal behavior of the doctor, and arms were crossed, you know, and I could just see all of it. I was like, oh shit. And I humbled myself, and I said, he's like, well, Chelsea, I only know about you. You haven't asked me a thing about my business. And I've only told him about my company and me, right? So that was very humbling. So that would be my
Goodness.
worst pitch.
Being able to pivot.
Yeah, so we did give this little scenario earlier.
But we want to give some other people some time to practice, though. We didn't get
Yeah.
to hear from. If I can't see their faces, I want to actually hear from them, though. You know, that's
Okay.
shit. So in this scenario, again, we're talking about being networking, and then that question, what do you do for a living? That question there really does tie to how you pitch to that potential customer. Again, we went through the whole sales process. We went through a lead. You know, every time you introduce yourself to someone, that is a potential client. You know, that is a potential relationship. There are a lot of relationships that have been individual contributors, and then they became decision makers. They've moved to another organization, and then they decided to reach out to me or Chelsea or whomever and bring me with them. That's how your relationship evolves. So understanding your pitch and owning that pitch and really being aware of it is going to help you pivot, because whether that company is, that individual is in the food and beverage industry and then they just end up in the engineering industry, because that happens a lot. You know, there are a lot of transferable skills. You know, you need to be just as flexible. We have any other feedback, any other stories or scenarios about? And so are there any business development strategies or questions that you would like to ask Chelsea and myself? So, because we do this, the business development part is looking at others' catalogs, looking at their content, looking at their services and products, and seeing how other ways you can reposition that to make it more attractive, to make it more engaging. I've worked with a lot of talent development professionals that just have a lot of content, and they're trying to figure out, hey, maybe we just need to reword it. Someone mentioned wording, making sure you're using the right terminology for today. That's very important when you're pitching. You don't want to use outdated terminology. You want it to be as relevant as possible. So if we're talking about, I'm gonna use generation, the sixth generation in the workplace, and someone's talking about the 5. Well, hey, we have 6, you know, and we don't even know what learning looks like for them at this current moment.
Mhm.
I'm pretty sure it's going to involve some goggles.
Yeah.
Some virtual reality, maybe. So, you know, so that's going to enter the workplace at this current moment. So what are you doing now? And that's a good leadway. What are we doing now to prepare for that, to prepare for them? And keep in mind, people are going to college earlier and earlier in life these days. So they're going to be in the workplace a lot faster than we think.
Yes, I think by 2026, 25% of them will be in the workforce. I think that's the number for the alpha generation.
That's like tomorrow.
Kinda, yeah. Any questions or feedback?
I have a question.
Oh,
What would happen, what advice would you give somebody who has been an internal for many years? I have been an L&D manager, and then I was vice president over a number of different responsibilities. But now I'm attempting to develop a business of my own. And I find that to be a transition from, you know, making that transition from being an internal, somebody who's worked in a company, to, you know, developing business externally, to be somewhat of a challenge. I started out okay until COVID hit, and now that COVID has hit, you know, it's become even more of a challenge. So what advice would you give somebody in a position like mine?
So interesting. I actually had a coaching call this morning with a young lady that's in a very similar situation that you're in. She's an executive at Mutual of America. She has all her series, this, that, and whatever. She's going to go for her HR certification. She's ready to start her own company, her own consulting. And she is making the steps to go in that direction. My question would be for you is to kind of ask yourself, you know, why are you ready to make the move? What's the value for you? You know, some other personal things. But you can do it because you have the experience, you've got the network, you've got the resources. Now's the time to do it. There's a lot of people that are starting out on, you know, going into consulting, and you have a lot to bring to the table. So
I will
take
add
over.
to that is your network. So again, this whole session was about business development strategies to tell you that it's about building relationships. So if you're not adding a new relationship to your bank weekly, in my opinion, finding a new contact weekly or whatnot, because that's how you're going to secure and build up that flow that you're looking for. You're going to have to grow your network, grow your relationships. And I think we're all kind of seeing COVID in a variety of different ways. Some people are being very successful because if you're in that DEI space, as an example, that's a good place to be at this current moment. But if we've also have these relationships with companies and corporations where we probably had programs we're running for years that got put on hold, which had an impact. So I say take a step back, look at what you're offering, seeing how we can reposition those products or services. But in addition to that, it's time to grow and expand your network. So doing some research and identifying new industries, new places to actually build a relationship in that area to expand. Because again, there are growing industries all over. And then also if you're focused just in the general area that you're currently in, it might be time, being that we are in a digital and remote world, to start looking at interstate or international type ways of engaging as well. Because I think the sky is the limit at this current moment. I believe, Deborah, did we answer your question?
Yes, you did. Thank you for that.
Yes. Marissa, I believe you came off mute right before Deborah, or was that?
Yes, I was just going to ask a question about the tools you mentioned. How long did it take each of you to feel comfortable, to feel like you had a, you know, I guess a stock tool chest when you're working with clients, just to know which way to pivot or what angle to kind of reach someone using those tools? How many years did it take you to kind of build that?
Oh. So I was secretly building my toolbox for years, but I think life happened. A colleague like Jonathan that's on the call, and even Chelsea, to realize and to have me comfortable with myself. So I would say some years. I think I got really comfortable once I actually built out content that I knew belonged to me, having my own IP, not so self-reliant on other people.
So I can say this is so, I love the question. I love it. It's it really forces you to be transparent and authentic and vulnerable too. With my years of corporate experience, I was noticing that I was making my company so much money, and I was building out a lot of the ideas and innovative ideas and things that the tools that we're talking about. And I woke up one day and I went to my husband and I was like, okay, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to start my own company because I can do this. I don't need them, you know? And so I prayed about it and I said, you know what? But to answer your question, I'm partially answering it. I'm like Neil, I was creating this stuff in the background and storing it and keeping it for years. And what I did was I put my own creative spin on a lot of the things. And in addition to that, I do a lot of women's group work with the women executives, and we bounce ideas off of each other and we hold each other accountable. So that's been a blessing too. So
I guess the biggest leap is being aware, and when you're ready to make the leap. Most of the time, we already have the capability. We already have the resources. We probably already have the toolbox. It's whether or not we want to walk out the door with it and open it. And I think it's normally the hurdle that a lot of us get to. That was the hurdle for me. Was like, okay, I wasn't confident in myself on whether or not I was a subject matter expert in this space. You know, similarly, when people reach out to me about being the talent development expert in Greater Atlanta, and I'm like, oh, stop, I am not. But in a way, I am one of them, and I have a network to support that. So you can reach out to me in anything about talent development. If I don't know it, I'm fine. I'm perfectly able to say that I don't know it, but I'm pretty sure I'm connected well enough to be able to get that resource to that client if they need to. And that right there happened over the last 3 to 4 years of me being here in the Greater Atlanta period, if we're going to put a time frame around it.
And I was lucky enough to see that happen.
Yes.
And if I may,
Mhm.
I just want to say that, you know, honoring what Chelsea and Neil were saying, I can say for myself, it was largely a confidence issue. It was getting past my own internal dialogue, because early on, I blundered into consulting because this was during the dot-com bubble. And if you all remember, during the dot-com bubble, you know, if you had, since Neil already used the expression, I'll use it. If you had a half-assed idea and you could scribble it on a cocktail napkin and get it in front of a VC guy, you get millions of dollars thrown at you. So I had a friend who had literally millions of dollars thrown at him for developing what seems quaint nowadays, but it was an app to scan items in the grocery store. And he said, "Hey, I need help building an organization. So, you know, could you do it?" At the time, I had a corporate job. I took the risk and I said, "You know what? I'm tired of corporate." So that was easy. The first client was easy. The second client, I failed. I've just failed over and over and over again. And it was my own internal dialogue. I was self-defeating, and it took feedback. Like, people gave me feedback.
Yeah.
People gave me feedback and they said, you know, "Jonathan, you sound not confident so we're buying you. You need to sound confident in your capabilities." And once I was able to kind of build up my confidence, and I took assertiveness training and I took a lot of tips from my dad on that too. Once I was able to get past my own internal dialogue, it actually got a lot easier. And I'm not as gifted as Neil in business development, but one of the things I realize is just get out there, just meet people, just help them, give away freebies from time to time, do the lunch and learns. I mean, I don't do much business development because I give a lot, and when I give, I find that I receive.
And that's the best nugget to get out of this whole conversation today, right there, is that one there. I would say, Chelsea and I, we have about 2 minutes left. My moderator just told us. So we're both offering a complimentary session for everyone that's joined us today. You can scan that with your phone if you would like to. And we'll also send out an email with it as well, just to discuss. Hey, Leanne, I love that. We always say training pros, pay it forward. Definitely want to make sure you connect with us on LinkedIn as well. You can find us with our names there. And we're definitely here to help. Again, we want to actually help you understand the process of business development and understanding not only who you are, but the value add that you provide for any organization, including yourself and your own business.
Thank you, everyone, for your time and your attention, your engagement. Love your feedback and your stories.
Thank you.